Welcome back. The 17th edition of the Africa Energy Forum ends today in Dubai, a region that has successfully built its gas-based economy into a booming global empire. With massive demand for power in Nigeria, a lot of focus has been on how to achieve a realistic electricity capacity that can power the industries and homes. But let's take a look at some of the issues raised at one of the sessions on what President Muhammadu Buhari's team should focus on to shape Nigeria's power sector in the coming years. It's unanimously agreed that the status quo on privatization be maintained, but there should be an unbundling of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, that is, separate marketing and sales from operations. Also, privatize transmission and allow the private sector own transmission companies. Of course, there is the issue with finance. There needs to be a review of the gas pricing mechanism with focus more on transmission and distribution and less on generation, as the capacity needed is 100,000 megawatts. But in the short to medium term, the focus is on generating 12,000 megawatts. As at the weekend, about 3,368.44 megawatts was generated. Well, joining me now to look at some of these issues is Professor Bat Naji, a one-time Minister of Power and CEO Geometric Power. A good morning to you, and thank you for joining me on the program.
Good morning, Aaron.
Well, let's talk about some of the issues raised at the various sessions that you've been attending at this summit. One of them in particular is, and you were part of that panel, is the unbundling of the Transmission Company of Nigeria. Do you think this should happen?
I think it should happen not in terms of outright sell to private sector, but we can achieve the same objective by concessioning. You can concession for a long period the power transmission network, but not also a single concession to an individual company, but you can have multiple segments of the transmission network all working together as a single entity. But certainly concession is the way to achieve this much better.
Have we had any successful concession at any time, even during when you were Minister of Power? Had there been any kind of collaborations or partnerships with regards concessioning some of this very much needed aspects of the power sector to ensure that capacity is raised?
Well, the hydropower plants are actually concessioned because of water rights, so they are not actually sold to private companies. You achieve the same objective, which means that the government is still the owner of the companies, but the private companies have total rights to improve and operate these companies. The same thing can be achieved with the transmission company, whereby the segments of the transmission company can be concessioned, and we now get a private sector investment into them. The government doesn't have the money to improve the asset as should be, because you're talking about billions of dollars that will be required to invest in expansion of the transmission network. Nigeria has to be looking 10 years on, 10 to 15 years on, to be able to will almost 100,000 megawatts, and if we are really going to be what we expect it to be. So this is what we should be expecting.
So 10,000 megawatts, 100,000 megawatts, and for the short to medium term, the present administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is looking at generating as much as 12,000 megawatts. Now, based on the scenario you've just painted, the government should still continue to have a major share in running the business of transmission of gas or whatever it is to all the generating companies, as the case may be. But from experience and from history, we've seen that leaving that aspect of running business with government hasn't really profited the economy so much.
Well, that is true. The government should really be out of the business. The government should just focus on policy making, becoming enabler providing all the wherewithal from the government side to make the private companies be able to operate the business, the entire value chain, which means from the gas, they should be able to support gas by having appropriate pricing for gas so that investment can go into gas production. You're talking about 12,000 megawatts. 12,000, actually, Nigeria has installed capacity of 12,000 megawatts. We just are not able to produce the 12,000 right now because of constraints in gas. It's either gas constraint or transmission constraint. All in all, we simply are not able to get this now. But it's not an Einsteinian problem. It can easily be, it can be solved. The gas issue by providing the gas and providing the transmission. So it's not about generation. The generation is there largely now, but we cannot be looking even at 12,000 because this is a country of 180 million people. And if we are to compare ourselves to Brazil or South Africa, then we have to be looking much bigger than that because of Nigeria's economy. And we expect that we should be a comparative country to say Brazil or South Africa or Malaysia or India.
But Professor Naji, looking at that issue you mentioned about gas, it's something that is major that everybody seems to be talking about. Do you think that the pricing mechanism for gas is appropriate? Do you think the federal government should be thinking about readjusting the pricing mechanism for gas to ensure that most of the companies that generate gas here in the country do not export it and rather give it to the generating companies who need it?
The pricing used to be terrible. Now the pricing is a bit open, but it has to be such that the pricing should be encouraging to investors. But more importantly, it's actually allowing private sector to be able to get into the business of production of gas. The PIB is the key mechanism for this to happen when it is passed. Right now, you only have few entrants in the gas sector, and but those ones are really performing well. You have the Seven Energies, you have Seplat, and you have a few of these other companies. These companies are critical to expanding the sector because the IOCs, while some of them have a domestic gas obligation, they still are not even able to deliver this obligation. For example, this year's domestic gas total is 4.9 billion standard cubic feet, but we are getting only 1.9. So the companies that are supposed to deliver gas to Nigeria should deliver this domestic gas obligation, as well as allow expansion of it. Nigeria needs a lot of gas, and we have it, but we need to be able to produce the gas, and we need to have the price, the freedom for there to be willing buyer, willing seller in the gas pricing.
Okay, so now that the PIB has been passed, it was among the bills that was passed by the National Assembly that just exited. What do you expect to see from this industry? Do we expect to see all of this that you've just mentioned? Do we expect to see a more robust energy sector, particularly the power aspect?
Well, with the PIB, definitely there will be a more robust energy sector. You will have people being able to invest in the production of the molecule, the gas molecule. You will see more people being able to invest in the transmission. So you have segmentation of the business, the business lines. So you have people who are going to be doing large, the trunk lines for transmission, the spurs. So people will now begin to specialize and be able to make money from investing in all these segments. But right now, that's what that has not been the case. But we are expecting that there will be a lot more robustness in the gas the sector.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about electricity now. You know, the tariffs and the rest of it has been a concern to customers. But then we know that the generating companies and the discos, of course, have to make their money. Now, there's been talk about having cost-effective or cost-accommodating tariffs. The former benefits Gencos and Discos, like I said, but the latter is more in favor of customers. Do you think that there should be an electricity tariff subsidy regime?
Whether there should be electricity tariff, what?
Subsidy regime.
Well, only for a while, because Nigeria, the way tariff should work appropriately, and that's the way the reform set it to be, is that there should be tariff subsidy for the urban poor and rural dwellers, and probably there should be continuously. At some point, there should be cross subsidy, which means the people who are capable of paying for tariff should pay more so that the urban poor and rural dwellers should be able to continue to get electricity. It's just the way it is done in all the countries of the world. Now, subsidy for now can work. We thought of doing it just for 3 years, and there are some other ways to get it without even having government to have to put in so much money. You can use power from government power plants to achieve this. For example, the NIPP power plants can be used in interim to achieve this. But the electricity generation and supply can be really expanded by allowing companies, all kinds of companies, even state governments, to participate in the development of power. It has to be free, it has to be open. What has happened with the new tariff mechanism is that there has been a bit of restriction of who should be producing electricity. There should be really no restriction. There's what NEC did, that is the regulatory commission, did by having a regulation on being able to get into building power projects by bidding. That is like rolling back the reform. It should not happen at all. There should be openness so that there is no corruption in the system. The goal is to outright remove corruption in the process of building power plants, transmitting power, distribution of power, and production of gas. Because you totally remove all that rent-seeking process.
So in terms of achieving that now, should there be a reviewing of what the policies that the regulators have put out?
There should be a review, yes. But definitely not a rollback of reform that's been achieved. Just a review.
Just a review. Well, thank you so much, Professor Naji, for joining me on the program and sharing your thoughts with us. Of course, it is the last day of the forum in Dubai. We can see all the activity going on there. We hope to talk to you again in the course of the week or the month to get more on this. Thank you so much.
Africa.